Hello and welcome to another episode of Empathy at the Table. And it's my pleasure to welcome Anuj Jagannathan, who is a coach, a trainer, and an author of 2 best-selling books on negotiation. I found Anuj on LinkedIn and I've been following him for a while. He's got some very interesting takes on the way he sees negotiation. We're going to do a deep dive into this. And the whole idea of our podcast is to really try and democratize negotiation. We wanted to kind of take away this idea that negotiation is something that's a clandestine kind of pursuit by people in suits who just want to make money. We want to really show the impression that negotiation is for everybody. We always negotiate every day. And Anuj has a really interesting take on this. So we're going to do a deep dive. I'd like to welcome Anuj to Empathy at the Table.
Thank you, Tony. And it is a privilege and honor for me also to join you. The amount of the videos that I've seen from your side and the amount of great work that you're doing, I think it's only adding value to everyone else. So I'm happy that I'm able to do maybe add on a little bit more to that value that you're providing.
Thank you. I'm sure you will. Sure you will. So for our listeners who maybe don't know about you, could you just give a quick summary of who you are and the work that you do in relation to negotiation?
Yes, sure. I would like the listeners to at least go back to understanding where I started from. I'm actually a finance professional. I'm a chartered accountant in India and a certified public accountant in the US. And I worked in finance for 24 plus years. I realized along this way, along this journey of being in finance, I realized that I think there are some skills that I have been missing, right? Now, how did I realize? Either through direct feedback that I received, right? Sometimes that's a good way to realize that. Sometimes it's not. Sometimes you don't get direct feedback, so you have to realize that, oh, I was missing something in my life. And by a happy accident, I realized that negotiation is something that I probably am extremely below average in my ability to negotiate. And this happened when I, about 12 years ago, when I was trying to move from one location to the other, and the negotiation that you do in terms of a relocation has to be solid. I mean, it was not only a relocation, it was also a job change, right? So it had to be a very a great negotiation for me to benefit, and I didn't do a good job. I mean, I'm being candid here, openly, honestly, accepting that I did not do a good job. I From what I teach right now, from what I know by now, I think it was a below average negotiation. And immediately, about 8 months after that, I joined my MBA program. I went through courses on leadership and influencing and negotiation, a 4.5 day module on negotiation. And I realized this is something that I need to deep dive. And immediately after I finished my MBA, I came back. I started reading a lot of books, recommended books. I started watching videos, listening to podcasts, reading articles. I did a lot of all that. And like I said, the happy accident in terms of teaching was my manager said, "Can you share something that you have learned in your MBA with your teammates?" Right? I mean, that's normal. And I said, yeah, why not? And the immediate topic that came to mind was negotiation and influencing. And I put together some material, shared with the team, a 2.5 hour session. This was an immediate team, and they loved it. I got some really good feedback. One of the participants said, I cannot sit in a meeting or in a training for 1 hour, but 2.5 hours went really fast. And I realized that I think this is important. The way I started appreciating negotiation, learning negotiation in the class, I think everyone would appreciate that, because generally what happens is people don't learn negotiation early in their years, right? Early in their career. And you have to probably go through years and years of toil, uh, either intuitive negotiation or maybe just trial and error, right? And you go through all that, and then you realize, oh no, I probably left a lot of value on the table. In fact, I can count instances where in my 20 years of my adult life, before I learned negotiation, I think I've left a lot of value on the table. So I started teaching negotiation. I started deep dive. I went to the Harvard Law School program on negotiation. And along the way wrote my three books. So from 2016, when I first did that session on negotiation, until now, I have been extremely focused on going deeper, learning deeper myself, right? um, as well as trying to add and contribute to the best I can to the audience that I have. And now I teach full time. Now I teach negotiation across several different platforms.
Fantastic. So, what I love so far, firstly, thank you for your candidness. And what I love so far about what you've said is your start point is you realize that you were bad at negotiating. And I think that's really important for any learning curve, right? For people to start learning is where they realize their inadequacies, their shortcomings, and that begins the process. Um, and I did a bit of research, and I did hear that you were really influenced by Robert Cialdini's work on influence. That kind of really got you going. Tell us specifically, when you look at the work of Cialdini, and you look at how that overlays in negotiation. What are the key learnings that you picked up from that?
So yeah, as I mentioned, leadership and influencing was my first course in my first, so to say, first segment in MBA. And when I read the book Influence Science and Practice, the book that is now a multi-million, it's a hit all over the world,
Hmm.
from Dr. Cialdini, I realized that this is something that I should have known maybe 20 years ago, right? This is something that I have been missing in life. Now, the applicability of these influencing techniques is all around us, right? We deal with people every day. And when you talk about people, it is these influencing skills that will apply. I, of course, was inspired by Dr. Cialdini's work, and have started working on that on my own. In the sense that I have developed some of my own frameworks in terms of in terms of influencing. But now I teach these influencing skills to even kids.
Yeah.
And as I can gladly mention that I just finished the influencing module, so to say, right, if you will. I just completed that at the school that I'm teaching right now, and it has been an extremely interesting and rewarding process, not only for myself, but a great learning for the kids. And why is that? Because again, we realize that there is influencing happening all around us, which is basically not only us influencing others, but others influencing us,
Hmm.
right? When that is happening and it's influencing happening around us, what we need to know is, yes, are we able to influence the other better? That's the first question. Are we able to get the focus of the other? Are we able to convince the other, persuade the other, whatever you call it? That's one aspect. But if the other person is using influencing technique that you don't want to be subject to at that moment, or you don't want to accept that at that moment, do you know how to counter that influencing technique, right? That second part is what generally it is not very commonly taught.
Hmm.
But I think it is important for you to be aware. My point is, you should be aware of when these influencing techniques uh, subject you to making a decision, right? And then how do you react to that?
There are some people I'm sure listening to this, and I know this because I have conversations with people, and I was one of them, who, when you hear these kind of clandestine techniques and approaches, it kind of feels like Jedi mind tricks, right? It feels manipulative. What do you say to people who might challenge you and say this is all kind of very manipulative? It's teaching people to manipulate to get what you want.
And I think that's a very interesting, extremely interesting point of view. And I feel that there has to be at least a boundary between doing this at that manipulative
Hmm.
extent, and at an extent where this is perfectly normal, right? Marketing companies use this every day, right? Now, if you have a product that you are trying uh, to sell, to another to a user, and you're trying to use authority as a technique, and your authority is a claim on how good your product is, right? Let's assume authority is a technique that highlights the value, how good your product is. If you're trying to use the authority, don't come up with things that highlight the authority in the wrong way. In
Hmm.
the sense that I have seen several of these marketing campaigns all around me, and I analyze these a lot more in detail. I have seen companies and brands use this advertising mechanism to highlight a product's superiority or authority without and by even after knowing, I don't know if they don't if they are, probably they don't know it, or they are acting as if they don't know it, or they just want to, like, on purpose do this,
Right.
but intentionally they are trying to put the superiority of that product in a way that the other person is getting influenced. And this is exactly where I say, don't fall for that influencing technique the way it is being subject to you. Now when I teach influencing, when I teach influencing, I say use these techniques in the most appropriate manner, so that you're able to deliver the message that you want to, you're able to get the focus of the other, you're able to get somebody's attention, but
Hmm.
not use it in a manipulative way. And if you do it that way, you'll get the result that you want, and it is also not going to be harmful to the other. So
Yeah.
I went into my spam box a few weeks ago, because I teach kids, right, how do you have to make sure, how you make sure basically that these techniques are being properly used. I went into my spam box and I picked 3 or 4 instances of emails that came through, and I showed in these emails what is the influencing technique that is being used, and how you should avoid uh,
Hmm.
falling for that influencing technique, for that matter, right?
Yeah. So what I'm hearing you saying is these things are happening anyway, right? The people are using these techniques on us anyway, and it's just
Right.
important that we're aware of them, and also the intention. I think if the intention is a genuine, authentic intention to improve a situation, then it's worth using these approaches in order to create value. So a question I have for you around that is um, you've kind of expertly broken negotiation into an art and a science. I hear you do some talks on how you see the art of negotiation versus the science. Can you expand on that and share with us your take on that?
Yes, sure. And like you said, I right from the beginning, when I started researching into this topic and this vast subject that we have, I said
Mm,
there is no way I can just combine everything into negotiation as a topic. I had to identify what is the science and what is the art, and that is important, because you can use the science in any situation, but it's the art which is going to complement the science, right? What is the science? Science is a three-phase process. You have to prepare for your negotiation, you have to engage in your negotiation, and then you close your negotiation properly. Let's assume this is your process of the science of your negotiation. Now you might engage, but at the time of engaging with the other party, if you don't use proper behaviors, if you don't use proper influencing techniques, if you don't communicate properly, this is what I call as the art of negotiation. And if you are not doing that, your preparation and your engagement is going to be of no use, right? It's worthless
mm,
if you don't engage properly. Even at the time of preparation, if you're not able to come up with the value that you are going to provide, if you don't understand the other party, right, if you don't understand behaviors that might be important, then that preparation is also not going to yield the result that you want to, right? So that's why I have this framework that I call the balance of negotiation. So if you hold a balance, like in the older days we had a balance, right? And there would be two sides to the balance. One side is called the science, one is called the art, and these two have to match, at least, right? There has to be a good blend between the science and the art, so that there is a balance. Either one which weighs more than the other is not going to bring you the best results as you anticipate. Because I mean, prepare going through the science in the best possible manner without applying the art properly is not getting you the result. Only
Mm.
focusing on the art and thinking that yeah, very good at speaking and I can get my way through it is not going to help you, right? Because at the end of the day, it is the preparation that helps you. It's the way that you bring the value in terms of several concepts and strategies that will help you. So
Yeah.
it is a mix, a proper blend of the art and science of negotiation that is going to yield the results that you feel at the end of the day that these are satisfactory results.
So I want to bring in people who are on the peripheral, right? People who they just don't like negotiating, right? Which
Hmm.
is actually a majority of people. People don't like to negotiate. It's got a bad rap, and so when we talk about negotiation, typically we think about negotiating a deal, and that deal has a monetary value. So the success of the deal is measured essentially by how much money is made by
Hmm.
either party. Um, let's bust open this myth, right? Could you expand and share what other value propositions are there? What other measures of value are there in negotiations other than just money?
Yes, and that's a great question, because this is how I start off my workshops generally, right? And I ask the participants, what do you think? Why does negotiation matter, or why does negotiating matter, right? Or why should we learn negotiation for that matter, right?
Mm,
Why is
mm,
that important? So yes, I do get these answers like getting a good value, right? We all go into a negotiation with an outcome in mind, so getting a successful outcome, absolutely true. Those are some of the outcomes and results that you expect in your negotiation. But in addition to that, I highlight two other points. Of course, getting a successful outcome, because we are in a negotiation every day, we go in with an outcome, we want that outcome, that's great. But getting the value and sometimes avoiding a bad deal is part of getting a good outcome, in the sense that you might go in, you might make a bad deal, and it's going to stay with you for a long time, right? Avoiding making that bad deal is important. I'll give you a very basic example that I just went through a few months ago. I signed up for a
yeah.
uh, digital marketing program with a firm, and they said, okay, this is going to be a 1 year program, these are the things that we will do for you, and this is the price. I said, yeah, that's great. When was signing up, and at the time of the contracting phase, they said the payment has to be made the full year in advance, so it's an annual payment in advance. I said, no, I don't do that. I am a finance professional, right? And I teach negotiation. There is no way I'm going to make this payment in advance. I will make a 25% first quarter payment, if you will, and if you're happy with that, and we will take it from there. And this is what I've been brought up. I mean, I've been told to do, right? In even in finance, but also in terms of negotiating, I don't put everything into the basket immediately. So I realized that this person who I was working, I was talking to at the other side, he said, "That's interesting because not many people have asked me for this." And the best part of this was 2.5 months later, many of the team members, the key team members who used to do all this work, they left. They started off on their own, or some people just left for another company. Whatever happened, many of the key team members left, and now I was left with no services. So I got
Mm,
2.5 months of services for a payment of 3 months. Okay, that's a small loss. But then imagine people who pay for 12 months and get only 2.5 months service and then nothing after that. And then these people are gone now. There's no way you can get your money.
yeah.
So getting value is great, but also avoiding making a bad deal. And the third and most important part that I highlight is we deal with people every day, right? Just like influencing, we are negotiating with people. Now, I asked this question actually in a very interesting story. I asked this question at my class in the school that I teach, right? So these are kids between the age of 10 to 13. And I asked them the same question: why is negotiating important, or why does negotiation matter? And many people said, many of the learners said the same, that we can get what we want, we can get a good result for ourselves. Yes, of course. I had this one 10-year old, right? And he said that we can learn to manage conflicts better. I could
Wow.
have never imagined in my wildest of dreams that a 10-year-old would say that. I ask the same question when I ask adults in my workshops. I sometimes get an answer like, you can build positive results, which is of course one aspect of dealing with people. But then you learn to how manage conflicts better as a part of learning how to negotiate strongly. So that is the reason why I say it is not only about getting the price. It is about building the value. It's building the relationship, because at the end of the day, you want to make and majority of our our negotiations are of those kind where we want to build a long-term relationship.
Yeah, for me, Anuj, you've said the magic word, which is relationship. I think a negotiation, if done well, whether you come out with a deal or not, a negotiation only enhances a relationship. It
Right.
builds respect, mutual respect. It builds mutual trust, if done well. So I'd like to do some diving into the kids. You've written a book, Wintastic, for kids, and I can't find much research on negotiating with kids. And I'd really like, and I have kids. I have 14-year-old triplets. So I
Wow.
need this stuff, and the stuff that you've got in your head, I need to know, because my kids run rings around me and my wife. Um, tell me when it comes to teaching empathy, for example, to a 10-year-old, a 13-year-old, how do you explain it to them? How do they receive it? And then how do you see the change as they get older?
And that's an interesting part. First of all, I would like to clarify that the two books that I have written after my first one, the first one was a book for adults and professionals like us, but the other two books, We Can Negotiate Too and Fantastic Deals, these are books actually for kids and young minds, in the
Hmm.
sense that when they are learning negotiation, I have provided the negotiation concepts and strategies and various learnings in terms of negotiation. I have provided that in an easy to understand, simple, real life examples to include with that learning. So that's what the We Can Negotiate to. And then Fantastic Deals is, okay, I agree that kids learn negotiation better through comics, right? So I built this Fantastic Deals as a comic book on negotiation. So it's the world's first comic on negotiation. I can claim that because I've not seen anything else. But then it's not only for kids that can learn, because if an adult reads that book, they also will be able to understand the important aspects of negotiation through that book, right? So that's a comic on negotiation. Now, going back to your question as to how do we teach kids these concepts, right? First of all, we probably think that the that it's difficult to teach kids these skills, right? But as I teach, and it's been 3 years now that I've been teaching at the school, and I have also done some other sessions for kids. As I teach them, I realize that they are much more absorbing and accepting to
Hmm.
learning new things. And the way you teach them is very important. So I teach them things like understanding the other person before you make a call, before you make a decision, or understanding the other before you even ask for things, right? Do you understand the other? Do you understand the other party's interest? Do you understand what is good for you as well as what is good for them, right? And I do this through several examples. Now, we should technically be teaching these at a level that they can understand, so through common examples, through daily life needs that they have, and if we use those examples and teach them, they can absorb a lot more. And the best part is, the earlier they absorb, the better it is. For example, the orange
Wow.
story, the classic orange story, the two sisters and an orange, right?
Hmm.
That is something that, yes, most adults also probably appreciate it, but the kids appreciate that a lot, because it's highlighting that you need to understand the other party's interest before you make a decision. Now many
Mm,
parents ask me or tell me that why should we teach the kids I mean, in a funny way, right? Why should we teach the kids how to negotiate, because they'll do it better than what they are now, and they will use it against us. What I tell them, this is the golden view, golden opinion that I think most parents would like to hear, is when I am teaching the kids, I am teaching them how to make it a win-win.
mm,
So today they might not be thinking about win-win, they might be thinking of win-lose, meaning they win and you lose as a parent.
mm,
But tomorrow, when they learn these things and make it a win-win, you are indirectly benefiting from their negotiation abilities, right? So if you teach them the right way, you are going to benefit. That's what I tell parents. Now the other aspect is emotions. A lot of kids probably throw tantrums. I mean, I'm not generalizing it, but yes, we see this around us, right? The emotional aspect is very important
sure.
with kids, and if we can teach kids very early in life how to read emotions, how to okay, controlling emotions might not be very easy for them at that age, but if we even make them aware that emotions happen all around us, you need to at least be aware of your emotions. And yes, as you grow, as you probably develop in life, maybe you can even start controlling the emotions, and that way I think it'll make it again, like I think what the good work that you also do is emotion is a very important aspect of any
Mm,
negotiation, any discussion for that matter,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
So if you can read emotions, acknowledge emotions, work with the emotions, and at the end of the day, you know how to work the best with the emotions. That is going to add a lot of mileage to your negotiation.
Yeah, that sounds like a recipe for success, Anuj. I mean, I'm really impressed that you've kind of built this niche for yourself. So, what was it that got you into the schools? Did they call you? Did you have to negotiate your way in there?
Uh, I'll go back a little bit. So
Mm,
before I went to the school, I actually published my first book, We Can Negotiate Too. And how that happened was I wrote the book for adults, right? I published the book for adults in 2019. And I realized through that experience and through writing that book that I wish I had learned all the stuff that I put in my book, right? I wish I had learned this 20 years ago, and unfortunately I did not, right? There was no opportunity, no window for me to learn negotiation early in my life. And I said, no, I think I need to teach kids early in their life, even if not teach them all the strategies or concepts, but at least be able to introduce them to this topic of negotiation and influencing. And that I think might be great, and for those who will pick it up, they will take it way ahead in their, and they'll start learning a lot more as time goes by, and
mm,
it'll probably generate great results for them, right? So my whole point of view was that I think the earlier we teach them, the better it is for them. And when I started doing that, I when I published my first book, I said, okay, let's see, does this book add any value to kids? And I will tell you that kids have really appreciated that book, We Can Negotiate Too. And I have actually got a lot of positive feedback on Amazon for that book, and also in general from people I know. So it is important to teach the kids early in their life. Now I started working on that, and once this first book, this book for kids was released, I or launched, I then went and talked to a couple of my own contacts and said, you work with kids, so do you want me to do a session on negotiation for the kids? And I did a couple of those sessions. And when I moved back to India from US, I went to this school and I said, I have this program, and would you like to teach kids these skills, right? Would you like to do that for the young minds? And I would have thought that they would even do that for the higher grades, like 13 to 17-year olds. But they said, okay, we want to do it, but we'll do it for the kids between 10 to 13. And for me, I mean,
Wow.
Age doesn't matter. The earlier the better. In
Mm.
fact, studies show that about 8 years is the age of rationalization. After 8 years they can actually start rationalizing things, right? This is from studies, and if that is true, then I think 10 is not a bad age to start teaching kids the negotiation aspects. And once you do that, of course, like I said, if they are really interested, they will take it way further.
Well, I mean, I definitely want to congratulate you on this work. You know, it's really close to my heart. The fact that you're doing this deep dive into, empathy, emotional intelligence, how to actually create scenarios where everybody kind of walks away satisfied. I think to teach kids, there's a saying that I heard years ago, and it still sticks with me, that a true human being is somebody who plants the seeds of a tree under whose shade they will never sit. And I
Hmm.
think that's what you're doing. So you're working with these young hearts and minds, and maybe you and I will never be around to see these people grow up, but you just know you're doing the right thing. And so I just really want to kind of note that and congratulate you. I
Thank you.
also wanted to ask you one other question, and this was, I've written this down. And by the way, I told you I had all these questions written down, and probably I've asked three of them, and the conversation's gone in different directions, which I absolutely love. But I do want to ask this question because I know you've had experience in the US and in India, and I often get asked questions around the differences in culture when it comes to negotiation. What's your experience on the difference in cultures as you've traveled around the world teaching negotiation?
And again, that's a topic that is very close to my heart. In fact, I've done a lot of work on the culture context in negotiation, right? And I actually had a request recently, about 3 months ago, when I had to do a 1.5 hour session just on the cultural aspects in the negotiation for this for real estate company. And because they had started working with a lot of Indian customers in the US,
Hmm.
they wanted to have at least some kind of the knowledge and the tools to be able to negotiate with the Indian audience or their Indian buyers or agents. And I was able to put together some strategies, some concepts, and even some behavioral aspects for them to go through the cultural aspects. So it's an important topic. Now, while this is a vast topic, I mean, it's a vast topic, right? I mean, I can go on just on culture for hours, right? um, it is important. Just the basic aspect that I'll highlight to you in terms of culture, it is important to know the culture contexts. There are two types of the context, right? The high context culture and the low context culture. I think we probably have heard this several times. It is important to know that, of course, there are a lot of other things that you need to know about culture. You need to know about the national culture, the society culture, the leader culture, the organizational culture. A lot of these different aspects of culture
Mm, mm,
exist, and you need to know a lot of these. But just sticking to the high context and low context is a topic that is quite interesting, because a lot of times you try to negotiate with the other, and if the other person is from a high context culture. Okay, now high context culture basically means that in these cultures it is the context that matters rather than the words, right? In the sense that your behaviors, your actions, your habits, the way you deal with people, that is more important than than saying things aloud, right? Than directly pointing out things. So there is a high context culture, and then there's a low context culture where the context doesn't matter as much. People just directly talk and say what they want. The words matter more than the behaviors. So there
mm.
are these two distinct aspects of the in culture, and it is important to know these, because a lot of decisions and a lot of behaviors and the results that you will get from your negotiation are all dependent on how well you read the context. So, for example, if you are in a negotiation, um, and you're from a low context culture, and you're in a negotiation with a high context culture, right? Now, if you have observed, and I've seen this is actually a real life example where I'll tell you, a low context culture and a high context culture negotiation, The high context culture is such that the people negotiating, right, they would always be a head of the group that will sit in the middle of their area, of their side. They all sit on one side. There'll be people who, the head of the group will sit on in the middle, and then people will sit around, and some people will even probably stand behind, right? If you imagine that kind of a situation in a low context culture, you would probably just go and sit on the other side also, but you
Mm,
never do that with in a negotiation with a high context culture. You never go and sit on that side,
mm,
right? Because that is not something that is easily acceptable.
mm.
So there are a lot of aspects. I mean, I can, like I said, I can go on and on culture, but these are important aspects for you to know the cultural nuances, the how you develop the culture quotient, right? I call it culture quotient. How do you develop the culture quotient for you to be able to then manage your negotiations effectively,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
I saw this cartoon once, right? And the cartoon had probably a western, a couple of members of a western team, and a couple of members of a Japanese team, right? And this is just a cartoon, right? And the member of the Japanese team is bowing, right? And that's the way of showing respect, of acknowledging the other party, right? Now the western team, the person on the western team is whispering to the other person, saying, let's bow deeper, or let's bow lower than the other, because that shows that we have respect. But and you want to gain trust, but that it might not be how it works, right? It's not as if that bowing lower is going to get you the respect
right.
or the trust. It is knowing how you bow, first of all, and when you bow, right? And also knowing the best way to do it. So in cultures, I think you need to understand basically how do you do it, the best way to do it. And if you don't know, if you cannot do it, just be neutral, right?
Yeah,
Don't assume that yes, you want to do it something do or you want to do something just because you think it is good, because those kind of assumptions don't work with culture.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I think you're right. I think you can be forgiven for being neutral,
Right.
and you just claim ignorance. But to actually do it and do it wrong
Wrong.
can sometimes be offensive, and
Yes,
it's
rude,
very
rude and
difficult to
offensive.
recover. Yeah, yeah.
Absolutely.
Anuj, unfortunately, we've come to the end of this conversation. I mean, we've been speaking on LinkedIn for a while, and when I wanted to interview you, you were kind of saying, well, are we going to have only one conversation, or are there going to be several conversations? And I said, well, let's get the interview done, but then this is the precursor to many other conversations, and I knew this was going to be interesting, and it has been. Before we finish, I'd like you just to share, what is it that you're working on right now, and how can our listeners find you?
Sure. And again, that's a great question, in the sense that I am going deeper and deeper into negotiation, right? The way I said, okay, I started off with the basic session for my team, immediate team members, right? And now I have negotiation all over the place, at least in my head, right? I'm teaching negotiation in several different forums. I have negotiation running in my head, I think 24/7.
Hmm.
So I do a lot of things now. The couple of aspects that I'm working on now is, first of all, it's an interactive and interesting negotiation platform that I'm currently working on, right? It's innovative too, in the sense that it is based on a few different cards that are scenario based. And when a group of participants or professionals come together and they have their turn, they read the card, and the card will give them a certain scenario, and then they go through that scenario. Learning, of course, happens through peer-to-peer learning as well as the facilitator learning, right? So I'm
Sure.
working on that, and then I have actually just recently finished developing another activity online, which I'm sure if any of the listeners want to know more about, they can reach out to me. But this is an activity that gives you a 20 step, or 20 basically yeah, steps in a process of negotiation. And it tells you, okay, how should you approach this negotiation right from the beginning to the end. So you just have to drag and drop these steps and come up with in your mind what is the best process to negotiate, and then it'll give you your score, and it'll also tell you what the
Wow.
right process of this negotiation is. So I just finished developing that. I think that might be something interesting. Now, in terms of where they can reach out to me, of course, I am on LinkedIn. Like, we connected on LinkedIn. I am on LinkedIn most of the time. I'm not so active on the other social media platforms like X or Facebook or Instagram. I do have accounts there, but not so active. But on LinkedIn, I check that multiple times a day. So if anyone wants to reach out to me, they can feel free to contact me on LinkedIn. And then, of course, if things go well, then it'll become a relationship like between you and me, and then we'll obviously take it further from there.
That's a deal, Anuj. Anuj Jagannathan, thank you for joining us on Empathy at the Table. It's been a real pleasure, and I look forward to our next conversation.
Thank you for the invite, and again, hope all the listeners will benefit from this, and I would be happy to connect anytime. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye-bye now.